Let's start with a definition of what social competence is. So, social competence is skills that allow children to get along with other children or with other people. They're skills that help them to behave constructively and appropriately in groups. So, for example, skills necessary would be to ask if you can touch other people's toys or to ask if you can play what other children are playing. So when children have those skills and abilities, they can get along with other people and they can play with what other people are doing. So some of the skills include empathy, being able to have that emotional regulation we were talking about before, being able to see someone else's perspective, being able to cooperate on tasks, being friendly, having social problem solving skills. So these are all important skills for children to have that will allow them to be socially competent. There are various things that influence children's social competence, and one would be the environment. So a big part of any child's environment is their family and the interactions that they have with their family members. So there are a couple things that matter here. One is the discipline practices that family members use. So when families use what is called inductive discipline, where they use a lot of discussion, give children reasons for the rules they have, make sure that the limitations that they're setting are developmentally appropriate, that they're not asking children to do things that are too easy or too hard. And again, where children understand why they're being asked to do the things that they're being asked to do, that's called inductive discipline, and that tends to breed social competence. And that also is part of authoritative parenting. So when you're using positive guidance strategies or inductive discipline, you also tend to use authoritative parenting, where you have appropriate control over children, give them appropriate limitations for their behavior, but do so in an atmosphere of high warmth, respect, and consideration. Other kinds of environmental influences on children's social competence include the play opportunities that they have. So when children spend too much time watching television, particularly aggressive kinds of media, then they're not getting the opportunity to play in more constructive ways and have an environment that's more conducive to social competence. So it's very important for children to avoid screen time activities that give them the message that being aggressive and unfriendly and not pro-social are okay. Instead, we should be limiting the screen time that children have access to, and when they do get access to screen time, it should be things that are positive and pro-social in tone. We also want to think about the toys that children have access to. So many centers avoid toys that allow children to display aggression, so weaponry kinds of toys, violent kinds of play themes. So we want to provide children with toys and role-playing opportunities that are pro-social and cooperative and kind to others rather than are aggressive and not pro-social and those kinds of things. Children's individual characteristics also impact their social competence. So part of this is developmental. When children develop better skills in particular areas, then they tend to do better over time with social competence. So in regard to cognitive skills, when children understand that they can make things happen in the world, including social things, they tend to be better social partners. So when they realize that taking a toy away from somebody makes them sad and makes them cry, or being unfriendly makes people not want to play with you, and in the reverse, being friendly and kind and offering materials to other children makes things happier and makes people want to play with you. When they get that they are active agents that make those kinds of things happen, then they are better able to navigate social things and have better social competence. Part of this is memory. if you can remember how things went in the past, so, oh gosh, I remember when I took a toy from that person and they cried, maybe I don't want to do that again, that also factors into that understanding of yourself as a causal agent. Not only are you thinking about how you're a causal agent in the present, but you're remembering how you were a causal agent in the past and what the outcomes of those interactions were. Also, there's a moral dimension here, which morality is primarily a cognitive skill. So when you can think about what is just and unjust and what is fair and what is kind and what is rude and what's mean and what, negative things bullying does to someone else, when you can think about all those kinds of things, you just are more socially competent because you realize that your actions matter and that what you do in the world is important to other people, and that makes you a better social partner as well. Self-regulation matters. We know that this does increase over time, that as we go along in our life, we get better self-regulation and emotional regulation skills. It requires social and emotional regulation to be a good play partner, to have social competence. It allows you to be better at interacting with other people. Also, another piece of emotional development that is important is being able to express yourself in a constructive, proactive kind of way. Also being able to understand the emotions that other people are feeling and experiencing. That will also increase social competence. On the next few slides, we're going to go through some of the developmental milestones. So we're going to start with interacting with adults and peers. So again, this is coming from the infant, toddler, and the preschool learning foundations. So you can see at 3 years old, children should be able to work fairly effectively with adults to communicate their ideas and experiences and solve problems. They will engage in simple cooperative play with peers, so not super extensive, but they're starting to hang out with each other and starting to do things together. 4 and 5-year-olds should be very good at interacting with familiar adults. As it goes across to the 5-year-old period, those should become even longer and more reciprocal. 4-year-olds should be able to interact easily with peers, much more cooperative in nature. In fact, much of their playtime is spent playing with and interacting with each other. And then at 5, that just continues to get better. Adding on to the information about being able to interact with other children, let's also think about how children can participate in a larger group and cooperate within a larger group. So if you're thinking about a child going to childcare, how do they navigate that childcare situation where there are multiple children? So 3-year-olds should be able to participate in basic group routines like a meal together or a short circle time, helping a little bit with cleanup time. They should be able to help with tasks when asked, so throwing away their trash, putting away a toy. It shouldn't be as difficult as it was when they were 2. When they're 4, they should definitely be able to participate in short group activities, so again, circle and meals. So just kind of continuing that. Also, if you're doing some sort of special activity, some sort of painting or cooking activity or craft activity, they should be able to come over and participate in the group. They should start to understand that there are social expectations and rules that go along with being in a group. So when an adult is sharing a story, that would be time for children to be quieter, that there might be class jobs that need to be done, that when someone else is speaking, it's time for another person to wait. They are generally cooperative with adults. Sometimes when they are very upset or when they've experienced trauma in their lives, they may struggle with this, but generally 4-year-olds are fairly cooperative. 5-year-olds should be able to navigate group situations pretty well overall, positive, cooperative. They really like adult approval, so they're going to work very hard to cooperate in particular with the adults in their environment. So we've also got conflict resolution when we're thinking about those social competence milestones. So 3-year-olds should be able to share, not all the time. I would encourage you to work with them more on turn taking. So when someone is done with this, it can be your turn rather than absolute sharing. Sharing kind of implies that you're going to give somebody something before you're finished with it. So most young children in general, most humans in general, tend to do better with turn taking than true sharing. They will still rely quite a bit on adults to help them control their feelings and behaviors. So when they're very upset, when something is not going well in a social situation, it's important to have adults close by to help navigate words to be used and not using hitting hands and managing those emotions. Still at age 4, same thing. Children do need adults. They may be more likely to go seek an adult out for help than a 3-year-old will, but they definitely still need that adult to be there to help them navigate those social situations. By 5, they should be better at navigating those social situations on their own. They may still need to come find an adult when they're not able to resolve things effectively, but they're getting more. If you've done what you needed to do when they were 3 and 4, they're going to have some more skills that they can use in social situations where there is conflict. They are more likely than 3 and 4-year-olds to use words to negotiate conflicts they have, but they're 5-year-olds, they're still going to resort to physical aggression and using verbal unfriendliness at times.
When children get to elementary school, they tend to spend less time with their family members because they're in school many more hours per day, unless they have been in childcare previously, and then it's probably not that much difference. But typically once kids get to age 6, if they have not been in preschool previously, this is when they now go to school. So the time spent with peers really does ramp up. Does not mean that they don't still care about adults. They do very much. Children age 6 to 8 are typically very eager to please. They are happy to do chores if they're asked. They're, actually a lot of fun to be around and can be very helpful in their families, but they also really do enjoy time with peers. A big part of peer play at this age is the rules. They love games with rules. That's a big part of what children this age do. In fact, sometimes they spend more time talking about the rules and what those are than actually playing a game. But if you watch the play of school-age children, it's often very rule-based. A lot of games on the playground that have very specific rules to them, board games, those kinds of things. They do like to win those games, so they still don't quite have the social emotional development to understand that you don't always win. So sometimes they may get rather stressed out if they don't win. I have a memory of my own child playing a board game with us when he was 6 and flipping the board game up into the air because he was not winning and very angry with us for not playing the way that he thought that we should be playing. So they like rules and they want to do well and they want to be part of a group, but they're not always particularly good at it if they're not first and they're not winning. This is a great time to start getting children involved in teams and groups and clubs because they really do want to be with their peers, and it's a great way for them to practice navigating rules and understanding sort of how things work and how do you navigate being in a group. Sometimes they might be overly influenced by what peers want them to be doing, how they want them to dress, what they want them to eat. So this is a good opportunity to start building those skills about what do you like, what do you want to be doing, not just what is it that your friends want you to be doing. So helping them to start navigating that peer pressure that's beginning at this age. Also, generally, children just develop skills along the way. It's partly just maturation. I think it's also evident from our previous lectures that it is important for us to think about how to help facilitate these skills. So sometimes they occur fairly naturally for some young children, and sometimes they need adults and family members, peers to help them out along the way as well. Because we know that all of these skills are tremendously important. So children's creative skills, their physical skills, their emotional skills, their social skills. Soon we'll be talking about cognitive and language and literacy skills, but they're all important for healthy development. So we do know from research that when children have good social competence, when they get along well with their family members, when they get along well with their peers, that they do better. They do better with current and future relationships. They do better academically. So it's not just, oh, it would be nice if they did well socially. It's really important for children to do well socially. So if we see kids who are having a hard time with their social skills, we definitely want to intervene and help. Some other research, so we also know kind of the opposite side. We know that when kids have good social skills, that they do better socially and academically, but we also know that when kids experience social rejection, they're having a hard time, that they tend to do less well developmentally. So very interesting. There was a study done at Purdue University, and they created a little virtual game where you're pretending to play ball with two other people. That's what the little graphic is on this slide. And then all of a sudden, two of the players stop playing ball with you and you get left out. And even this mild rejection that happens on a computer, you're not even playing with real people, is enough to make people report on feeling rejected and feeling sad. And when you pair this kind of online task with an fMRI, which measures activity in your brain, you can see that the part of your brain that lights up when you experience physical pain is also the part of your brain that lights up when you feel emotional pain. So when people feel rejected through playing this game, the part of their brain responsible for pain fires up. So it's no wonder when people talk about a breakup or being rejected by a friend that they talk about it being painful and how hurt they are, because they really are hurt. And so unfortunately, when kids experience this kind of rejection over and over, it does lead to developmental difficulties and relationship problems down the line. So we really do want to jump in early and help kids to belong and feel like they're part of a group and avoid this rejection if we can.
On the next few slides, we're going to talk about how to increase children's social competence. So the first way is to minimize conflict. So it's really important, first of all, to directly teach children conflict resolution skills. They don't know how to use these skills if we don't directly teach them. So when they get into elementary school, if we haven't worked in early childhood to give them the tools and skills that they need, they're going to have a hard time managing those things on their own, and they're going to continue to use adults for help past the age at which they might need to so much. So the YouTube video here on this slide is a good example of early childhood teachers directly teaching children the skills that they need, particularly through play activity. So another way is to make sure that children understand that everyone has rights, that no one is allowed to be treated badly, that classrooms belong to everyone. So making sure that children understand that everyone can play. It's not okay to say unfriendly, unfair, untrue, or mean things about people. Extremely important. When children have the opportunity to be in charge and make decisions and work together in creating a healthy classroom environment, they're better at being able to navigate conflict between one another, because they all take responsibility for the classroom and how it operates. So it may not seem intuitive, but teaching children how to make decisions and be more independent actually can reduce conflict among them. And then if you are having problems, if there is some sort of issue, so if children are being treated unfairly or excluded, bring them together and have them meet together in a group. And amazingly enough, even young children are able to come up with strategies and solutions to reduce the problems that everyone is experiencing. Another way to increase social competence is to promote cooperation among children. So first of all, help children to be more empathetic. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is, gosh, I notice you feel bad. That's bad that you feel bad. Empathy is, I feel bad because you feel bad. When we feel other people's feelings, not just notice them and recognize them, it encourages us to work to alleviate that person's upset. And when you feel what someone else is feeling, you're more likely to want to be cooperative with them and help them and be socially positive around them. When children are having a hard time sharing things or experiences or adults or other children, help them. Provide activities and opportunities so they can practice working together and being cooperative. This is not a skill that always comes naturally, so sometimes we have to socially engineer opportunities for children to come together, work together, create together, not just wait for that to happen. Help children to see that when you're kind and when you do nice things for other people, that it feels good. So help them to recognize those feelings that they're having when they've done something kind and pro-social and helpful, and also use that positive, authentic feedback that we talked about in a previous lecture. So tell them things like, I bet it made you feel really good when you did this, or I noticed that you two worked together and you were able to build a much taller tower than you would have been able to do on your own. Also, just in general, live a life and talk with children about the importance of cooperating and compromising. Make that something explicit. Don't keep that something hidden. Talk about it, read books about it, do circle time activities related to it so that children can clearly see that this is something that you and their environment values. The final way to increase social competence is to reduce aggression displayed by children. So first of all, if children are behaving aggressively, try to find out what's going on. Are they being bullied themselves and then they're just responding back? Is something going on at home? Are there not enough materials in the classroom? If you can figure out why they're being aggressive, it's much easier to navigate and figure out how to interact with that child so that you can make it better. If you don't know, you're likely to pick the wrong strategies and then not be able to come up with effective solutions. When you see children trying to get their needs met and they're struggling and then they're using aggression to get their needs or their wants or their desires fulfilled, help them to figure out other ways to do that. Help them to find the right words to talk to someone. Help them to take a turn with a toy. When children have other strategies that are effective, then they can put aggression away. They're not going to need it anymore because they've found a replacement behavior that works just as well or better and is better for everyone else in the process. When children are feeling angry, sometimes you can give them other activities to do. You have to be a little bit careful with this one. There's something called catharsis. Catharsis is the idea that you want to spit, so go spit on something that's okay. You want to squeeze something, go squeeze something that's okay. There is evidence to show, though, that when we give children cathartic activities, that it could potentially increase their aggression. So instead of relieving the need to squeeze, it just exacerbates it. So be careful about what kinds of opportunities you provide. Instead, think about calming activities. What are things that you like to do when you need to calm down or reduce your feelings of frustration and aggression? So not kicking a ball because you needed to kick someone, but go run outside and play and kick a ball. It's still okay to kick a ball if that's something that relaxes children. Splashing and playing in water, reading a book, doing some sort of art activity, so things that can just be a calming influence and help children to kind of have a minute to sit and relax. And then finally, never allow bullying. If you see children being mean to each other, I said this earlier, don't let that happen. Both of the links on this page give you more information about bullying and the negative effects that it can have on both the perpetrator and the victim.